بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين. Respected scholars, elders, brothers and sisters, and youngsters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So we began with welcoming this holy month of Ramadan as the special visiting guest who has been sent to us. But the guest is divine hospitality and we are to qualify to become guests. So how do we do that? And the du'as of the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt and the Holy Prophet guided us to prepare ourselves and welcome this month. And secondly, we said that the whole of the year, the time period when fasting was prescribed by God, wasn't any month of our choice. That if, for example, one of the benefits of fasting would be the medical effect, and as the doctor has just explained that minimum per week we need 5 days of 30 minutes of activity. So God the Almighty could have announced that per year you need 30 days of fasting. You decide to choose when to do, but minimum in 1 year 30 days. No, a specific time period was chosen, and that was the holy month of Ramadan. Kwa nini sijui, sorry, that's the wrong answer. Najua. Kwa sababu Mwenyezi Mungu mwenyewe ametangaza shahru Ramadan alladhi unzila fihi al-Quran. So we said that in order to be able to benefit in this holy month, we need to learn how to benefit from the Quran. And alhamdulillah, the culture of recitation of the Quran is being promoted, but we need to go several steps beyond that. And therefore I suggested, based on the verses of the Quran itself, why was it revealed? And based on the guidance of the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, of what sort of attitude we should have when we recite the Quran. So I suggested that our attitude should be that we should recite slowly, tartil, and clearly, and attentively, fastami'u lah, and interactively, in that this is kalamuka natiq. It is talking to me. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. I'm talking to you, you the believer. Labbaik Allahumma labbaik. Yes, Master, tell me what do you want from me? That's interactive. Or for example in Surah Mubarak Ikhlas, وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٍ. It is mustahab, be it in salah or outside salah, to interactively answer كَذَلِكَ اللَّهُ رَبِّي أو كَذَلِكَ اللَّهُ رَبُّنَا. So the recitation should be interactive, it should be reflective, tadabbur, it should be repetitive, mathani, it should be tearful, if also fearful, and that depends on whether there is the impact on the heart, and there should be an attempt to reform oneself and transform oneself. So this was the overall attitude that we should keep in mind as we recite. But in order for this recitation to be able to achieve these results, we need to be able to understand the meaning of the Quran. And therefore, I would like to clarify and remind ourselves the importance of the Tafsir of the Quran. So what is Tafsir? And why is it that we need Tafsir of the Quran? Essentially, Tafsir is a commentary or an explanation, but a scholarly, expertise-based explanation of the Quran. It's not my personal view and my personal commentary of the Quran. Why is it that the Quran would need a commentary to be able to appreciate its deeper meaning beyond just the apparent meaning of the translation? Essentially, one of the problems we face is that the Quran was revealed at a time in response to certain events that happen. So we need to understand the context in which that particular text was revealed, and that would illuminate and enlighten for us these circumstances, and therefore enable us better understand why this ayah was revealed. So we need to know a little about the history, we need to know a little about the Jahiliyyah customs and cultures prevalent at that time. And of course, we need to know hadith and how the hadith explain these verses of the Quran. And hadith in itself is a specialization where you need to understand how do you establish whether this particular hadith is reliable, it's credible, it's authentic. So that's one big reason you need specializations, or you need deeper knowledge about history, about reasons of revelation, about the hadith literature. But beyond that, you may say, I know a little of Arabic, but over time the language has evolved, and today modern Arabic is somewhat different from classical old Arabic of the Quran's time. So you need access to dictionaries that would tell you what was the meaning of this word at the time of the Prophet and revelation of the Quran. And thirdly, the Quran, you must remember, is a book whose miraculous certificate that I'm a miracle is its eloquence. The Quran is challenging, be it the Arabs of its time, be it people of all times, because the Quran is addressing mankind till the end of time. It's challenging everyone, bring something like it. Like the whole of the Quran, bring another book. That if you can't, so in Surah Mubarakah Baqarah, the challenge is that bring a whole Quran if you can. If you can't, then in Surah Hud, that challenge is reduced by 90%. We give you a 90% discount. And if you can't bring the whole Quran, more than 100 surahs, bring 10 surahs. بِعَشْرٍ سُوَرٍ مُفْتَرَيَاتٍ, if you can. But if you can't even bring 10 surahs, another 90% discount. 10%, just bring one surah, if you can. But if you cannot bring a surah unless you have understood what the Quran is saying. And therefore, you need to understand the eloquence. The Arab culture at that time spoke Arabic in an eloquent way. They used different tools of the language. So for example, metaphors. So you would need to understand how the metaphorical language is used in Arabic. So again, Tafsir will explain that, the expert in this area. So not only the context and specializations in language, but you also need to appreciate that the Quran is a book of law. And in law, certain laws are stated unconditionally, certain laws are stated conditionally, certain laws are stated over time, certain laws are abrogated. So again, you need to find out the details. Certain laws are mentioned in brief, but the details have to come from the Sunnah and the Hadith literature. So for all these different reasons, Tafsir becomes a commentary of the Quran in order for us to be able to understand it deeply with the help of the experts. But that doesn't mean that ordinary people cannot recite the Quran and understand the Quran. The Quran does talk to everyone. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس It is guidance for all of mankind. Yes, وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِنَ الْهُدَى وَالْفُرْقَانِ. There is a deeper level, the bayinat level, the furqan level. For that you need certain preliminary studies and sciences. So allow me to give a little example of how this deep level of tafsir works. So I'm talking about two concepts here. One is tafsir and one is tadabbur. Tadabbur meaning reflection on the apparent meaning of the Quran, which is sent to everyone. In fact, the kafir is challenged. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ وَلَوْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ لَوَجَدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. Why don't these non-believers reflect on the Quran? Had this Quran been from a source other than God, they would have found a lot of contradictions and inconsistencies and incongruities and disagreements in the Quran revealed over a period of 23 years. You look at any scholar who evolves over time, their views, their opinions, they mature. Over time they discover they've made mistakes, so they rectify themselves. But the Quran, because it is not from a human source, it will not have the one yardstick to judge whether this source is human or suprahuman, is to find any contradiction in the Quran. But the kafir, on the day of judgment, when he is being punished for wrongdoing, for rejecting the truth, may say, excuse me, this Quran that you sent to me, I could not understand because you did tafsir and I don't know, you said there's so many specializations and I wasn't a specialist. No. At one level, the apparent level of the meaning of the Quran, everybody can understand. In fact, everybody is asked to reflect and ponder and contemplate and see what lessons they can learn. But because the source is all-wise and all-knowing and infinite in his wisdom, definitely the depth of knowledge that is hidden beyond the apparent meaning, that depth is wide, and that is going to be discovered over time by experts. So, in cases where the ayah of the Quran is, the apparent translation is such that it can be interpreted in two ways or three ways or multiple ways, so in order to be able to discover which particular meaning is intended, that's where you will need tafsir now. So just an example. There is this tafsir of the Quran, which is recently published. If we can show the picture on the screen, please. The name of the tafsir is Tafsir Tadabbur al-Quran. And you notice the calligraphy in the center, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. And what is the second ayah? That's only half the ayah. What about the other ayah? So, based on the concept of tadabbur, which is then explained as reflective commentary, what this tafsir has tried to do is offer an in-depth understanding of the Quran. This is beginning Juzu 30, and then other Juzus, Juzus 29 and 28, and others will inshallah be published. So what it does is it checks the tafsir of the top experts in the field and extracts and compiles information and then makes it accessible to the average intelligent, educated person. But in addition to that, after tafsir, it also gives you tadabbur and reflection. So I will give you an example how it works. So this is Juzu 30. One of the verses of the Quran in Juzu 30 is about the Arsh of God. So Surah Mubarakah Takwir, chapter 81, Allah says that this Quran, إِنَّهُ لَقَوْلُ رَسُولٍ كَرِيمٍ ذي قوة عند ذي العرش مكين مطاع ثم أمين. This book has been brought by a messenger who is an honorable, noble messenger, Jibreel alayhi salam. ذي قوة, very powerful messenger, Jibreel. Amongst all the angels, he's the top. عند ذي العرش مكين. He's got a strong status of authority with the master of the throne. Question: throne? What is this arsh in the Quran? Well, incidentally, it is not only Surah Takwir. The word arsh appears in many verses of the Quran. So in Surah A'raf and Tawbah and Hud and Ra'd and Bani Israel and Taha and Anbiya and Mu'minun and Furqan and Naml and Sajda and Zumar and Ghafir and Zukhruf and Hadid, the word Arsh appears, that God is the master of the Arsh. So it's an important concept. Literal translation, throne. What is the meaning of the throne? This high seat on which person of authority would be sitting. The question is, how does it apply to God? Is there a physical throne that applies to God or not? This is where there is a difference of opinion by Muslims. So some Muslims believe that the Arsh is something that we can't understand. We know what the Arsh is in the human realm, but the Arsh in the heavens or in God's realm, what does it mean? We don't know. The Ahl al-Hadith amongst the Sunni scholars, the Ash'ari amongst the Sunni theologians, they say Arsh is a concept which we should believe in because God has said so, that He is sitting on the throne, but we don't know what it actually means. The kayfiyya is not known to us, but we do believe it's obligatory to believe in it. And please don't ask questions. To ask questions is bid'ah, because we can't give you answers. We're not supposed to know the answers. God has said so almost 20 times in the Quran. We accept it. The other group of Muslims, the Mu'tazili, and incidentally on this issue also the Shia Ithna Ashari theology, says that no, the Arsh here is not a literal physical entity of a seat or a throne. It is a metaphor for a position of power, of authority, of ordering, commanding, administering, governing. In order to be able to explain to the human beings in terms in which they could understand, a term was used which was familiar to them. And this is again supported by riwayat also of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Some scholars go even beyond that. I am quoting from this. You can go and check it under the Tafsir of Surah Takwir, chapter 81, under this ayah, which is ayah number 20. ذي قوة عند ذي العرش مكين. Some scholars say that the Arsh is not only a metaphor of God's power and God's authority and God's control. In fact, it has a certain reality, a non-physical reality, and an existence of its own. And it is the locus, Allama Tabatabai rahmatullah alayhi, he says, it is the locus and the position from where the commands of God are issued and through which He administers the whole of creation. There are certain verses which say that the reason they're saying that it has a certain reality, it's not only a metaphor, is because certain verses of the Quran say that this arsh of God has certain entities who are carrying it. يَحْمِلُونَ عَرْشًا يَحْمِلُونَ الْعَرْشِ or يَحْمِلُ عَرْشَ رَبِّكَ فَوْقَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ ثَمَانِيَةٍ in Surah Mubarakah حَاقَّةً. Beyond that, the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam explain to us what is the concept of arsh. I don't want to go into detail, it becomes a little academic and scholarly. You may go and refer to it for details, but just to give you an idea that Imam alayhi salam says that للعرش صفات كثيرة مختلفة له في كل سبب وضع في القرآن صفة على حدة. Arsh has been used in the Quran and each surah or each ayah in a different sense with a different description depending on the context. And then Imam alayhi salam compares the arsh to the kursi, that إنهما بابان من أكبر أبواب الغيوب. In the invisible, unseen realm, the arsh and the kursi represent two of the biggest doors. Ghaiban, they are ghaib, we don't know, we can't see them. But kursi is al-babu al-zahir and arsh is al-babu al-batin. So this apparent door and this hidden door, the outer gateway or doorway of the world of ghaib from which everything descends. That's the kursi. وَسِعَ كُرْسِيُّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. But the inner doorway to divinity, the arsh, Imam alayhi salam says, that is الذي يوجد فيه علم الكيف والكون والقدر والحد والأين والمشية وصفة الإرادة وعلم الألفاظ والحركات والترك وعلم العود والبدء. That inner doorway of ghaib, the arsh, therein lies the knowledge of the howness of things, of the existence of things, of the measure of things, of the limit of things, of the location of things, of divine volition, of the attribute of divine will, of the knowledge of the words, of the movements, of the abandonment and of the return and the origin. I translated it. I don't know how much I understood before you could understand. But that's the Imam alayhi salam explaining the details of the arsh. But if I can give you an example. So the arsh being the source of authority, of knowledge of each and every entity, down to the smallest particle. So I mentioned about fasting, that fasting has been discovered by the medical researchers to have medical benefits. So they are advocating intermittent fasting as having beneficial health effects. One of the honorable doctors here shared with me the most recent article. What I told you was about a few years ago research. The most recent article, just a few weeks ago, that talks about new research which shows about metabolomics, whereby how in our gut there's a microbiome, there are certain bacteria that live with us, good bacteria, helpful bacteria, and how fasting is helping us at the level of the gut, at the cellular level, at the level of the cells. They've discovered how fasting helps. When I read this hadith about Arsh, the one who has total control, whereby this young man sitting to me physically is closer versus an old gentleman sitting at the back who is further away. But the Arsh of God, ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى عَلَى الْعَرْشِ. For him at the Arsh, to have power and control and knowledge over everything after He created them is sawa. The distance between Him and the closest and the furthest is the same. Between the biggest and the smallest is the same. Between the visible and invisible is the same. His knowledge in my body of those bacteria which are helping me to survive. Those cells, how do they operate? When does fasting have what effect? He knows it from the Arsh. So, if He is prescribing and ordaining fasting for me, I should have the confidence that He knows me and my body to the minutest detail, to the smallest particle, much more than even what science can discover, even in the future. And hence I submit myself. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, labbaik Allahumma labbaik. So this is one example where tafsir, you go into details, but you need expertise, knowledge. Even for us to be able to appreciate the Quran where He says about fasting, وَأَن تَصُومُوا خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. If you fast, there's something goodness in it for you. That goodness, a few weeks ago, now we are told by the medical experts, has been discovered and published that it has certain medical effects. And there are some more which will be discovered in the future. So these depths, you need expertise, knowledge to be able to guide us in tafsir. Tafsir can also be scientific. Tafsir can be tafsir in the different social sciences or experimental sciences. However, that doesn't mean we can't do tadabbur. We can't do reflection on the apparent meaning. So again, giving an example from this book. Regarding this very same ayah of the Arsh. So that was chapter 81. In the reflective part, the authors are offering this point for reflection. Sorry, I should have picked up the... So ayah number 20, the authors are saying that tadabbur on this ayah, that this Quran has been brought by the messenger, and this messenger is from near the Arsh. The reflective point is that the revelation of the Quran was entrusted to God's greatest angel, Jibreel alayhi salam, and sent down to His greatest prophet, sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, and God swears by this process, indicating the enormous importance of this Quran. What's so great about this message that the greatest messenger, Jibreel, was given this message to be given to the greatest human messenger, the Prophet. This book, the greatest of the book, is now in my possession. Reflection. I should reflect on how much importance I give to this on a daily basis. Now this is something you don't need expertise to be able to understand from the Quran. This is something where every intelligent human being on reading can understand. Or look at another example where the point I'm trying to illustrate is the importance of tafsir by experts versus tadabbur, which every ordinary intelligent human being can carry out. So this is Juz 30. That's Surah Mubarakiyah, Naba, chapter 78, up until 114. Juz 29 also has already been published. Unfortunately, we may not have the printed version here, but it should be available on Amazon. And in fact, Amazon also has the e-book also available. In Juz number 29, which is from Surah Mubarakiyah, Juz 29 starts from which surah? Sorry? Surah Mulk, chapter 67. Down to chapter 77, Surah Mursalat. In between is chapter 75, Surah Mubarakiyah Qiyamah. Wujuhu yawma'idhin nadira. On the Day of Judgment, you will find some faces are radiant and bright and shining. Why so? إِلَى رَبِّهَا نَاظِرَةٌ. They're looking at their Lord. Question. What do you mean looking at the Lord? Is the Lord something visible that you can see? In the Tafsir, the deeper meaning, we have three opinions. One opinion says, yeah, God is visible. Not only wujuhun yawma'idhin on the Day of Judgment, even here in the dunya. The Muslim scholars who belong to the group of the Mujassima, the anthropomorphists, who believe that God can have a human shape. He has hands. The Quran talks about hands of God. He has legs. And God comes. God has legs. The one hadith says, and God steps down and puts his foot into the Jahannam and the fire will reduce. This is in the hadith literature. Those who literally accept the hadith, they say, well, this is what the hadith says. God has a leg. We don't know how, but he has a leg. He has hands. He has eyes. Oh, Nuh alayhi salam, build your ark under our eyes. God has eyes. We don't know how it is, but he has eyes, they say. So, this is one interpretation. God has some physical form, but we don't know what it is. Second group of Muslim believers made tafsir of this ayah that people will be able to see God. They say not in the dunya, but in the akhirah, yes, because the ayah says, وُجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ نَاظِرَةٌ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهَا نَاظِرَةٌ. The third group of Muslim scholars say that no, neither in the dunya nor in the akhirah, God is not going to be visible. Because visibility means that light has to come, bounce off the physical object, get reflected to my eyes, and the rods and cones in my retina have to be stimulated, and the light stimulus has to change into an electrical signal, which is then transmitted by the nerves to the brain, and the brain interprets that this is a particular image I'm watching. But that means there is light which has to fall on a physical object, otherwise I can't see it. But God is not a physical entity. Qanini, the Quran itself. I'm just summarizing the argument presented here, Tafsir. Because God himself in Surah Mubarakah, An'am, chapter 6, ayah number 103, he says that لا تدركه الأبصار وهو يدرك الأبصار. Eyes cannot see him, but he can see the eyes. The Imams of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam in the tafsir of this ayah says that forget about eyes, even the mind cannot see him. Close your mind, close your eyes, try to imagine. You can't imagine what God is. Even the eyes of your brain and mind cannot see him. لا تدركه الأبصار. Absolute negation of any possibility of the human faculty, be it physical, be it mental, to be able to visualize God. لا تدركه الأبصار. Qanini, because هو يدرك الأبصار. He's the one who engulfs and encompasses. He's the one who's unlimited. I'm the one who's limited. The limited can never encompass the unlimited. وهو اللطيف الخبير. And he's all penetrating. Latif also means he's all kind, but he's all penetrating, he is all encompassing. And therefore he knows everything. Khabir, ana khabari, of everything. But he's Latif also, he's very kind and gentle, doesn't punish immediately. So based on this ayah where the Quran itself says, physical visualization, not possible, neither here nor there, because the nature of God is not going to change from the dunya to the akhirah. If at all, we may grow or we may sharpen our senses in the akhirah, but not to the point of an impossible becoming possible. So the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam have categorically said that no, not possible to visualize God, neither here nor there. But this deeper understanding will come by the guidance of the riwayat of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, the philosophical reasoning. However, simple reflection. A person just reads the ayah and understands that وُجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ نَاظِرَةٌ إِلَى رَبِّهَا نَاظِرَةٌ. They will be able to see not physically God, but His presence they'll be able to feel. His mercy, His grace, His compassion, His reward, His hospitality will manifest itself on the Day of Judgment much better than what we can experience here in the dunya, because the dunya is a limited realm of creation. That much reflection we can do, given the basic tafsir. That visualization not possible, but His presence can be felt, His signs can be seen, His manifestation of grace and power and authority and love and mercy can be experienced. وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ, and His lutf and grace and compassion can be felt in the Day of Judgment. Al-Khabir, where He is going to inform us everything. فَيُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِمَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ, and He is going to inform you all the details of everything that you did in the dunya. That much reflection is possible for any ordinary intelligent human being. The conclusion I want to draw is that God is unlimited in His wisdom, in His grace, in His mercy. How best to guide mankind till the end of time, He has revealed that message in the book. How to frame it, how to formulate it, He has done that in these Arabic words. But at different levels. There is the apparent level which is accessible to everyone. Everyone on the Day of Judgment shall be asked, did not my message come to you? But at the same time, because a book of this size, 6,000 something verses, cannot codify all the laws in all details, certain basic principles have been mentioned. The details of those principles then are explained by the Prophet ﷺ. يُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. It is the duty of the Prophet to be able to do ta'aleem of the details of the book. In fact, to teach them the depths of the meaning of the book. And that is why we refer to the Prophet, and after the Prophet, the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Let's pray to Allah for tawfiq to be able to listen to God and hear Him speaking to us, and then to begin to ponder and to reflect and see how we can reform and transform ourselves. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.